Welcome to FedScoop TV. I'm Wyatt Cash, and we're here at the IT Modernization Summit. And joining us today is Todd Gagorik. Todd is the Senior Manager for Federal Solutions with Amazon Web Services. Welcome to the program.
Thanks so much, Wyatt. I appreciate being here.
Great. So we're talking about a variety of issues around IT modernization. But one of the things I'd like to ask you to start with is, what are some of the major barriers you still see agencies facing to modernize their IT systems?
I think they would probably fall into, I would say, three categories. Honestly, the biggest one is culture. It's this notion that we've done things the way we've done them forever, and this is the way we're going to continue to do them because that's what we know best. And change, of course, is scary, and the velocity of change that's occurring in information technology, just all up, is frightening, right? It's coming at a pace that is truly unbelievable. And to be able to keep up with that, I think it's a real challenge for a lot of people who are coming in and they're doing their mission every day. They're trying to get things done. So the culture of embracing change is one. Second, I think we still have ways to go on the policy framework. There are policies in place that make it sometimes very difficult to take the more modern approach. A cloud-first approach is great all up when you say it at the Tony Scott level, the CIO level of the entire federal government, but when it filters down to the systems engineers responsible for border security at a given agency, it's like, no, we want to maintain control of this and that. And so there are different ways to do things, and unless you're, one of my favorite truisms is you don't know what you don't know, right? And there's a whole lot of that, I think, that you can't get there. That's very difficult. And then the last one was, and it was great to hear Ms. Correa's remarks in the sessions that we had at the IT Modernization Summit here regarding acquisition. There's challenges around acquisition of shifting from a capital expenditure model where there's large funding programming that has to occur up front, moving from that to an OpEx model that is utility-based and is some level of unpredictability, but having that spike consumption and that de-escalation at the same time of we're going to spend what we spend only, right? And sometimes we're going to spend more than we thought. Other times we're going to spend less than we thought. But it's going to it's going to come out to a nice smooth curve at the end of the year. But how do you budget for that, right? And so I think that's a real challenge for CIOs.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you. Well, let me ask you this: what do CIOs? What can they do to enable their teams to continue at least moving forward to transform towards more digital operations in this face of those challenges?
Well, I think as somebody mentioned, and we've all read it, change in this environment really does have to come from the top, and it has to be it's a bold CIO that has a vision and the understanding of what is possible. There's so much transformation that's occurred, obviously, in the entire cloud. The technology that cloud brought to the table enabled an entire industry of startup capability and enabling new experiences in the commercial world across an incredible array of applications and capabilities. That same thing is available to the federal government, but it takes a bold CEO to see the vision of what can be done and being able to take that and then push down the idea that we need to retrain. We need to not be afraid to fail. One of our favorite things that we think about at Amazon Web Services is that you fail fast and you're not afraid of it. You embrace failure because if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough, right? You're not pushing the edge of the envelope and doing it in a way that can actually end up being very, very beneficial to your mission. Right?
So tell me, what systems specifically do you think are most poised or best poised for modernization right now in federal government?
Well, clearly I think end of life is one significant issue. You've got systems that they're so antiquated that the upkeep and maintenance of those is just, it's an ever-increasing cost burden. It's a personnel drain. If you think about the dearth already of COBOL programmers and folks like that to maintain code that's been around for 50 years, it's an ever-decreasing pool of people, and so you're losing that. So end-of-life systems are huge to really look at those as the first. Another is going to the other end of the spectrum, really basic static systems that provide just information. Think of the top level sites of all the departments, right? Where you might have some news feeds, some content, those kinds of things. The public face of all the agencies, man, that stuff is just really straightforward to get over to a cloud environment. And then it's the enterprise systems stuff in the middle that is the migration problem. Those are the tough ones, or more difficult ones to have, longer planning windows, because you have a bunch of application integration issues you have to think about. There's a lot of things involved in that. Not saying it's not done successfully. It's done successfully every day by our customers, but that's the heavier lift. But those two on the edge, on either end, those are the ones that I think are the most impactful and most readily approached.
You mentioned earlier about culture, but let's talk a little about the workforce side of that. And so, how do you see sort of the needs to help through the workforce changes that are also required to support IT modernization?
Well, I think it has to be a broad spectrum approach, Wyatt. It really needs to start with our education policy, frankly. This is a public policy problem. It's also a workforce training problem, all the way from the kids that are coming out of high school and college. How are we addressing the skills that they have, and then incenting them properly to come into government? That's one angle of the thing. The current workers that are in place, again, it takes a vision again of the CIO at the top, or the head of the agency from an IT perspective, to drive change into that organization and set up programs that give people a roadmap to see their way to doing the same thing a different way, right? I'll give you an example. We manage, in the federal government, we manage untold exabytes of storage platforms in a certain way in data centers with legacy vendors that have just mountains of iron and hardware there, and there's a skill set that's involved with that. Guys who know how to run storage array networks. There's a lot of nuance there and a lot of institutional knowledge build up. When you move from that world to the cloud, you're still managing storage. You're still doing all the things that you need to do. You're just doing it in a way that's a little bit different. But the concepts are largely the same. It's a different dial that I turn. And so being able to approach the guy who manages storage at a given agency or gal and say, look, this is what you need to learn. It's not a big leap. And I think there's just a huge fear of, well, that's so different. And it really, in a lot of ways, isn't, right? And so it's making that change happen and having essentially programs in place to move people from where they are today. So training is obviously a very huge part of that.
Well, and lastly, let's talk about cybersecurity. Once upon a time, cybersecurity was the big barrier to moving to the cloud. I think we've moved along in that spectrum. There, people are actually sensing that can be more secure by working in a cloud, but we still have a lot of cybersecurity issues in government. What's your take on how cybersecurity fits into the IT modernization picture?
Well, clearly, it goes back to that idea of we did things a certain way, and this is always how we need to do them, particularly as it relates to that highest bar, which is security, of securing our data and information and access to it. We need to change our approach to, in the security community, there needs to be a broader perspective. And I think it's interesting when you see cloud security experts, how they can articulate the transparency that they get, the visibility to any change at all to the environment in a completely real-time way. That is compelling. And once you're able to actually effectively communicate that to the security professionals that are used to doing it with, massive monitoring of configurations of a bunch of different devices that they control and own and all that, you take a lot of that off the table, because you're able to much more effectively get your arms around all of it, because it's not a bunch of stuff that potentially Bob walked into the data center and plugged the blue cable into that jack over there, and next thing you know, all your security measures are out the window because they have access to an environment that in some ways you just can't monitor as effectively as one that is so process and operationally tight run as a cloud environment, right? A commercial cloud. So that's a big difference, I think.
Well, thanks. Well, Todd Gagorik, thank you so much for stopping by and chatting with us, giving some of your insights today at our IT Modernization Summit. Appreciate it.
No problem, Wyatt. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Great. I'm Wyatt Cash with FedScoop TV. Thanks for watching.